Gareth, can you hear me now?
All right. Good evening again. Koans, this wonderful book, The Gateless Barrier, Zen Comments on the Mumonkan. We are working through these one at a time, which, as you all know, will take probably over a year as we interweave it with poetry. Right now, we're going to look at number 7, which is Joshu says, "Wash your bowls." So we will do the usual thing, which is I will read through the koan, the commentary, and the poem, and then I will talk for a little bit, and then I'll work through it again, more stepwise, explaining or waxing eloquent perhaps on it as we go through it. Are you familiar with koans, Richard?
Yeah,
A little. So a little's probably more than enough. So these are these pithy exchanges where individuals get these profound awakenings in Japanese satori. So here is the koan. Once a monk made a request of Joshu. "I have just entered the monastery," he said. "Please give me instructions, master." Joshu said, "Have you had breakfast?" "Yes, I have," replied the monk. "Then wash your bowls," said Joshu. The monk had an insight. The commentary by Mumonkan, who put this together. Joshu opened his mouth and showed his gallbladder and revealed his heart and liver. If this monk, hearing it, failed to grasp the truth, he would mistake a bell for a pot. And the poem. Because it is so very clear, it takes longer to come to the realization. If you know once candlelight is fire, the meal has long been cooked. Lots of scowls and frowns. So I'm not going to spend long with my background. I'm going to jump in and talk it through stepwise fairly quickly tonight. But as with all of these, the sort of understanding context, looking at these as people, because these are stories. These work because they're stories. Stories, as with myth and poetry, they allow us to access reality in a non-linear, non-dual kind of way. It's not like a direct teaching. It's this thing that allows us to approach truth obliquely from the side. So Joshu's an amazing guy. I think he died in 797, I seem to remember from way ago. He was a particularly crusty Chinese practitioner. He studied with Nansen, and it's the story. I think he was the guy who did, Nansen and the cat. I think Joshu was the guy who cut the cat in half when Nansen was talking. He didn't really cut a cat in half. Or did he? It's a myth. You don't know. It doesn't matter. It's not the point. But he had a fairly young awakening, which means he was fully self-realized like in his 20s or something. But he decided, I really need to mature this. So he spent like the next 50 years or something wandering all over China, visiting all of these other teachers. And this was dangerous. They wore straw sandals. They had this little bag of stuff. They didn't have much. There were tigers and lions and poisonous snakes and horrible weather. He was wandering all over China, visiting all these monks. The great matter of life and death. It's just the most important thing. So finally he decides, okay, that's enough. And he set up his monastery. And as best I can tell, it was pretty much on top of a really tall mountain. It was a very old building that was falling down. There were holes in the walls. He only had a handful of people come practice with him because he was a man of staggering insight. But the conditions were so stark and bleak that it was just really inaccessible. So it was really for serious, very, very serious folks, which within that environment, to be particularly notably serious is very serious. he apparently lived to be the age of 120. So an amazing guy, amazing guy. So as with all of these, you get this exchange between two people. If that's the nature of Joshu, then the other person is presumably a real student. But as with all of these students, what we need to realize is this person has also traipsed halfway across China to visit him. May have been sent there by somebody else. And they have shown up, and what they are presenting, the question they are presenting, it's not like, this tea tastes a little bit spicy. What's in this tea? It's, what is the meaning of life and death? I've travelled all this way to see you. I've spent half my life looking for you. Please, I'm stuck. Help me. So the question has that intensity in it. And we're also always looking for that point. The koan, it always has this this valence of exposing a contradiction where you can't pick. That's the point of cutting the cat in half. You can't pick. You just can't choose. So every koan, every absolutes don't work. Koans as a general truth they posit this, they present this two truths, and you can't choose between the two. There's this choice you have to make, but you can't make. Mumonkan, I think his name was, hanging from a tree by his teeth. Somebody asks him a question. If he answers, he opens his mouth and he falls to his death. If he doesn't answer, he's not fulfilling his responsibility. What does he do? How do you make that choice? So we've got to look for that place in here where we find that fundamental gap. So, once a monk made a request of Joshu. We've talked about who the monk and Joshu are and the nature of this question. I have just entered the monastery, he said. Please give me instructions, master. Please give me instructions. That's the question. Where is the conundrum there? Well, actually, I think this is rather more subtle. I think this is a trap. This is not just Jack off the street who's coming up and is stuck. This is somebody who's been practicing for a long while, who already has meaningful insight, who already gets it, and he's testing the teacher. Please teach me, master. Please teach me. So what's the trap? The trap is there's nothing to teach. Reality is reality. It's already here, right in front of your nose. So there's nothing to teach. You can't teach him. So if Joshu steps into this and offers a teaching, he's shown himself to be a useless teacher. If he doesn't step into this and offer teaching, he's failing in his responsibility as a teacher. So koans, actually, many of you have heard me use, well, no, I won't go. Yes, I will, since I started. One of my favourite stories, which has got to be used carefully because it presents women in this very unfair light. There's a horrible side, very horrible side to the story, but it's one of my favourite stories to show how to handle this kind of trap. And it's Jesus and the adulteress. So the story, and this is out of the New Testament, of course, Jesus is sitting down with some of his students, and the rabbis come up and they've got an adulteress, and they throw the adulteress on the ground and they say, she is an adulteress, she should be stoned. That's the punishment. So apologies for the horror of the story, but to get to this point, which I think is a really important point, it's a trap. If Jesus throws a stone, he's violating his own code. If he doesn't throw a stone, he's violating the Jewish law which he has sworn to uphold. So what does he do? Doodles in the sand? Let the one without sin cast the first stone. It's dropping out of that continuum into a different place and answering from a different place. In this case, he's dropped to a place actually of pure compassion. So you change the rules, and you don't. So that's the nature of this. It's a trap. Joshu has to respond, but the responses available to him are responses that will lead to him missing. So what does he do? Have you had your breakfast? So the Diamond Sutra, we started on the Diamond Sutra on Saturday, and the translation, it's the only translation and commentary I've seen this particular approach, but it's also the only translation and commentary from a Chinese master as opposed to somebody who's very anglicized or Americanized and has a fairly strong academic set of credentials. And it just feels absolutely right to me what I'm about to say. So Subhuti, after the introduction, Subhuti approaches the Buddha and says, so, Master, you are skillfully mindful in trusting and teaching the bodhisattvas. How should a bodhisattva purify the mind? And the Buddha's answer, Tathagata's answer is, use excellent Subhuti, very well done. Yes, indeed, the Buddha is skillfully mindful, so. And bodhisattva who wishes to still the mind should still it thus. And then Subhuti says, we eagerly await your answer, Master. He missed it. That was the answer. It was the lived answer. So Joshu's answer here is the lived answer. Have you had your breakfast? It's right there. It's in everyday life. The Diamond Sutra actually starts. Most sutras in the Mahayana tradition, they start with this magnificent location with a few million bodhisattvas and arhats hanging around, and then some others visit on clouds, and there's celestial noises and petals come raining down, and a beam of light comes out from between the Buddha's bushy white eyebrows. None of that happens in the Diamond Sutra. In the Diamond Sutra, the Buddha is staying at Anathapandika Park. He puts on his robe, takes his bowl, he goes, begs for food, comes back, sits down, eats his food, folds up his robe, washes his feet, and sits down to meditate. It's just really ordinary. And the point is, that is where the question is presented, and the answer is just continuing to be that. Truly, totally, what you are doing. Truly, totally present. Have you had your breakfast? Yes, I have, replied the monk. No, you missed it. You missed it. You missed it. We eagerly await your answer, Master. Then, said Joshu, wash your bowl. Oh, I get it this time. Thank you. It's just this ordinary everyday action. But it's done with complete presence. It's done where there is no me, no food, no bowl. It's just suchness. It's pure suchness. Just being there, awareness in pure suchness of ordinary everyday. Mumonkan's commentary. Joshu opened his mouth and showed his gallbladder and revealed his heart and liver. It's all right there. There's nothing separating you from it. Joshu was just profoundly intimate, totally vulnerable. He gave the whole thing away. In Zen, this would be called grandmotherly kindness. He just gave it all away. There's nothing hidden. Everything is revealed. If the monk, hearing this, failed to grasp the truth, he would mistake a bell for a pot. What is this? Most of you have seen me do this before. What is this? It's not a bell, it's not a pot. It's defined by its function. So this would mistake a bell for a pot is pointing at that kind of thing. Because it is so very clear, it takes longer to come to the real. So I'm on the poem now, of course. Because it is so very clear, it takes longer to come to the realization. If you know at once candlelight is fire, the meal has long been cooked. Because it is so very clear. It. I remember years ago, Okamura he's still alive, but he's retired. He was a very senior Japanese Soto Zen teacher, and I was on a retreat, which he was visiting Atlanta actually. But I was sitting, and I had what I thought was just this like really profound experience. So in Zen you go and you have this interview with the teacher, Doku-san. So I went and had my interview with him, and excitedly, it's like, I just had this experience. I was sitting, and I realised it is sitting. There's no Gareth. It's sitting. And he looked at me, laughed. He said, "It's raining." It's the same it, right? It's raining. So, because it is so very clear, and it is so clear, it's everywhere, it's everything. It is so clear. How can we miss it? Because it is so very clear, it takes longer. It takes longer to come to the realization. It is kind of confused. It is so clear, and yet in the Quran there's a line, I am closer to you than your jugular vein. One of my business clients many years ago, it was my first client after I'd left the corporate world. I did a consulting project for him, gave him my report, and he said, "Wow, this is amazing, Gareth. It's really helpful. It's so obvious. But you know, it's not that I can't see the wood for the trees. I'm so close to the trees, I've got bark marks on my forehead. It's closer to you than your jugular vein. Because it is so very clear, it takes longer to come to the realization. If you know at once a candlelight is fire, and it is, right, the flame of a candle is fire. If you know at once a candlelight is fire, the meal has long been cooked. From the very beginning, all beings are Buddha, like water and ice. Without water, no ice. Outside is no Buddhas. From the very beginning, all beings are Buddha. It's been cooked forever. You've just got to see it. So those are my comments, folks. What am I doing here? Oh, that'll do. What does that bring up for people? Questions, comments, thoughts? Yes, Richard.
Your whole idea about making things clear.
Mm-hmm.
What's the name of the book you're reading from again?
This is the particular book is called The Gateless Barrier: Zen Comments on the Mumonkan, and it's the core text is the Mumonkan, the Gateless Gate. It's a collection of koans.
I think I misunderstood. I thought you were talking about Korean.
The koans in Korean, they're fundamentally the same.
Are they? Okay. Anyways.
Yes, they're exactly the same because they're the same tradition.
Sunday before last, at least in the group, the Sunday group, we went through a writing of Thich Nhat Hanh about mindfulness, and it was always be aware of suffering. Okay,
yes.
It always started that way. And Matt was reading from another piece by Faye, and talked about just being very conscious washing dishes.
Mm-hmm.
And the thought came into my mind, and I could be way off on what I asked Matt. I didn't really get a good answer. I said, okay, when you're trying to be mindful about washing dishes, aren't you really trying to clear your mind so that you become very mindful of suffering?
Mm-hmm.
Is there any substance to that thought?
It
Seems like that's what you were saying just now, that the key is clearing your mind rather than what, I don't know, I can't take the train of thought, but I'm trying to grasp that thought came into my mind, that what you're trying to do by all these practices really, by sitting here and meditating for 40 minutes, you're trying to clear your mind so that you can be aware of the suffering that other people, and perhaps yourself too, are having in this world. Is that the end goal?
So I'm going to not answer that question directly. I'm going to answer in a way that I hope you realize I'm backing into giving you a bigger answer and leaving you with a couple of questions.
Okay.
All right?
It's like, have you had your breakfast?
Exactly. So Tai is he brings lots of different lineages of teaching together. He's got a set of commentaries on sutras where he brings sutras out of the Mahayana tradition, he brings them out of the Theravadan tradition, which is the Pali text. So he really synthesizes an enormous arena of Buddhist knowledge and teaching in his teaching, and it's remarkable the way he does it. And I'm going to try and play with that same game just a little bit here, nowhere near as skillfully, but I'll try and play the same game. So in the Pali tradition, the Theravadan tradition, the Buddha, the teachings there display a progressive path of teaching. So you start off practicing generosity. You're just generous. You give people things. You help people. And many Asian teachers coming to America, teaching in America, or having American students go and try and practice them within Asia, say, "Oh my goodness, you guys don't know generosity. We've got to take you way back and start with this. This is so basic. You've got to do generosity before you can move on and do the rest of this stuff." So you start with generosity, and children begin with this, and then you move on to the precepts, which are not killing, not taking things that are not freely given, not engaging in intoxicants and so forth, and you're building the framework for a stable, solid, virtuous, moral life, whatever you want to call that. And from that place we can then step into meditation practice and mindfulness practice and awareness and so on. But it's this gradual teaching, and it keeps going. And so when we start talking about things like mindfulness, which is one of the main practices, of course, when we start talking about mindfulness, we need to recognize how it fits in, because depending on what level you're practicing, mindfulness when you're practicing generosity is not going to be the same as mindfulness when you're practicing seated meditation. It's going to be more sophisticated, it's going to be more subtle, right? So we've got that continuum going on. As a general truth within that, when we bring mindfulness to bear, what we're trying to do is not change things. We're not trying to stop thoughts. We're not trying to say, "Go away, mind." What we're trying to do with mindfulness is allow ourselves to be present and create the environment for us to concentrate and see things more clearly. So when you are mindful of washing the dishes, you're not being distracted by the leaf blower across the street. When you're mindful of washing the dishes, you start to become appreciative of the dish, of the food, of the hands and the body that are mechanically doing this. You start to develop a profound sense of gratitude for all of this and for all of the people around you and for the world that is supporting you, the universe that's supporting this existence and this story. And you start to see more clearly that the plate is already broken. Right? At some point it's going to be broken, and so right now it actually is already broken. So you start to see more clearly the impermanence of all of this. Right? So this mindfulness is taking us deeper and deeper into this more focused and clearer way of experiencing the world, And as it does so, we start to realize we're all in this together. The left hand, the right hand, if something happens to the left hand, the right hand just goes and takes care of it. It doesn't say, what have you done for me lately? It just helps. And as we get deeper into mindfulness practice, we start realizing Richard's just my left hand. If Richard saw, I'll go help Richard. Why would I not? It's inconceivable that I wouldn't. Right? So mindfulness moves us in that path. So that is that's the gradual path. But there's a discontinuity. There's a discontinuity. Because the discontinuity is that final step is when you realize not that your mind is coming down, you realize I am not my mind. I am not this body, I am not my mind. The identification with this is a fundamental mistake. You woke up this morning, maybe not this morning, but sometime this last week, you woke up from a dream. Probably. And when you were dreaming, it was very real. If it was a nightmare, you'd wake up, oh, that was just a dream. Thank goodness for that. Gone, go away. End of dream. When you were in the dream, it seems so real. But you wake up and it's gone. So, Buddha means the awakened one. This is analogous to that dream. This is a story. It's not real in that concrete sense. This is a construction. You are something you have constructed. You're also something from this side that I have constructed, which makes it really interesting. But from inside, the I is something that is a completely constructed entity. And the mind is also a phantom. There's a bunch of stuff happening, sure, but to pull it together and pretend it's a thing called a mind that is my mind is an illusion. So that final step is to realize this is not me, I am not this. Oh, and then awareness steps outside all of that. So this experience here that we're talking about, these koans, they're a slap or a punch. They're a shock. There's something that jolts one that last little bit of the way. Shunryu Suzuki, founder of the San Francisco Zen Center, said, awakening is an accident. We can't make it happen, but we can make ourselves accident prone. So what we do with all the mindfulness practice that Ty and others are encouraging us to engage in is making ourselves accident prone, and the more we do it, the more subtle this becomes, the more accessible it becomes to those kind of accidents. So then when a pebble hits the bamboo, or when we hear a stream running down the hill, or when a door slams on our foot, or when somebody says, then wash your bowls, the accident is more likely to happen. So, as I said, a long answer that didn't answer you directly, but hopefully gave you something to chew on and play with.
It brings to mind another question. Is there an ultimate reality if we're not in a reality now? Does mindfulness bring us to an ultimate reality?
There is, so there's two answers to that. The answer is, one answer is going to be yes. But the other answer is, if you walk out of here thinking yes, you're holding on to something that also doesn't exist. So there is a waking up that is, this is the mind awakening up and realizing that you, who you really are, is the mind that does not dwell. Is an awareness that doesn't land. Once it lands, it starts getting stuck. The whole clinging and craving story starts happening. So it can't land on an absolute truth either.
So we shouldn't dwell on whether there's an ultimate
Correct.
reality or not.
Correct. Just practice and recognize that you're stuck in a story you're making up. And the more you practice, the looser that story will get. And eventually, maybe another 1,000,000 lifetimes, who knows, eventually there will be complete release from that story. And it's kind of Ken, who's on here, he's a pilot. And if you ask Ken to tell you how to fly a plane, he could tell you. It wouldn't do an awful lot of good. So the same thing, you've got to release from your story. And until you're released from the story, you have no idea what that really means. You can't.
I love the concept of mindfulness is clearing your mind with a duality of appreciation. I love that.
Good. Anyone else? What else, folks? Clay?
It seems to me that children are particularly good at this.
Yeah.
In that, when you watch a kid do anything, it is everything to the world to them.
Yeah.
Even looking at the sun through like the fibers of a towel. You give a kid a set of Legos and that is their whole world, and they're doing it, and that's it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to me that when I think back on these things that I did, time lasted forever, right?
There wasn't time. It wasn't that it lasted forever or not. It just didn't exist.
And it's not until we are taught to accommodate the world of adults
That's right.
that time starts to speed up. So it seems to me that it's already here, right? In that even at a very young age,
Mm-hmm.
we have this ability, and if we can somehow peel back the conditioning, we might as well live for 120 years for how much a single moment will fill.
Right.
But that's what seems to me that jumped out, is that there's a lot of childlike innocence in the process of washing your bowls.
Youth is wasted on the young. And I say that facetiously, but also seriously. Yes, but the child has not yet had the life experience, has not yet had the suffering, doesn't yet have the maturity to recognize what we're talking about. So this is, the six realms of Buddhism. Gods are in the most wonderful place. They live this blissful, wonderful life, but they don't know what suffering is. So they can't wake up to the truth of suffering, and therefore they can't escape. If a child is really that free, a child wouldn't turn into an adult. But so yes, with directional yes, but in a sort of an absolute sense no. But here's another one that goes to, which is another one of our little mental games. We have this idea that we have more children in order to make more adults, in order to make more children in order to make more adults. But it's like, which is the real animal? Is it a caterpillar or is it a butterfly? There's a strong argument that children grow into adults so they can make more children. But it's really about being a child, and this phase we're all stuck in is the waste of time phase that only exists so we can have more children.
I like that.
Did you ever read Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse-Five?
I read some of that stuff a long time
They
ago.
got those aliens that can see in the fourth dimension, and when they look at humans, they just see like long worms of people, and where one ends, the other begins, because they see everything happening at once.
Yeah.
One of the sad parts of getting to be 82, you all find eventually, is that time becomes more important.
Yeah.
I'm very conscious of how much time has passed or hasn't passed, and the fact that I'm getting near the end. So that's a sad thing, really, but it's true. It's hard to stop that.
Yeah. The Buddhist teachings, I won't go there now, but the teachings are designed to provide you relief from that.
And this,
The teachings are designed to give you relief from that.
Okay.
They really are. You look like
you were in the corporate world, you said,
yeah.
and you studied a lot, obviously. Were you a monk at one point in your life?
No, I mean, I was ordained a Zen Buddhist priest, and that's how I was a Zen Buddhist priest for a number of years.
Yeah.
And then, no, I just, I mean, I'm in the Thai forest lineage through the insight tradition, so that's, I mean, I've got a formal practice tradition that I'm in, but I've never formally lived a life in a monastery as a monk, no.
Just curious.
No. Somebody on Zoom, you guys on Zoom have been quiet. Maybe like Ken, you've all got screwed up mics right now, but anybody on Zoom?
Can you hear me?
Can't hear you, Ken.
You can't hear me?
Sorry. Susan.
Sorry.
Oh, it's not Ken, it's me.
I have a question, but I heard Ken perfectly.
Ken, I'm sorry. Somebody had turned the microphone down on me here. I didn't even think to turn it back up, so the speakers have been off.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you fine. I've sent you on a wild.
I have been going through the settings menu. I have been trying. I went to the help menu.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay, so when you open here next week, there is this device, which is tucked underneath the orange cushion on the side, and there are two little knobs on it, and the one on the left is the volume for the speakers here.
Wow. Okay.
Test the speakers.
Just set the thing up so the way it's supposed to be, and I won't touch it.
Well, the thing is, between now and then, somebody else will, so I can't promise it'll stay. Anyway, all right, your question, Ken. Go ahead.
Oh, I didn't have anything to say really. I was just testing my microphone to see if anything.
Oh dear.
Testing, yeah, using the microphone, but nothing to say.
Oh, well, there we go.
He was picking our interest, and we're like, oh my God, what is Ken? You know, he keeps talking. I'm sure he's saying something
Really profound,
and we can't hear it.
So,
in one of Eckhart Tolle's retreats, he sits in this big seat, and the microphone is on a stand, kind of far away, and he just sits there for a long time, just kind of wondering what he's going to say. And he brings the microphone real close to him. He says, if you bring the microphone close enough, words might come.
Yeah. Words are overrated. Susan, did you have anything, or were you just trying to... No.
Just trying to help out poor
You succeeded. You actually did succeed. Precisely because I realized it was at this end when I couldn't hear you either.
When two people.
Yeah. What's the common link here? Oh, it's me. All right. What else, folks? Anything else? So you're all going to go wash your bowls now and wake up?
Mm-hmm.
Katie, there you are, yeah. Now you're actually on mute, Katie. This one I didn't know.
That I can fix.
Yeah.
I wonder if maybe this little interaction about the microphone is related to the koan,
Yes.
in that trying to just figure out life and being intimate with that and humorous about it and lighthearted, holding it lightly, treating it lightly. But it's whole life and being intimate with whatever life brings us. And I could so relate to the student of, oh, tell me the secret.
I know.
As opposed to the secret is just being intimate with where you are in life at the moment.
And a lot of the trick to being thank you, Katie, absolutely. And a lot of the trick to being intimate, it is what you're talking about. It's taking things lightly. It's not taking anything seriously. It's moving to a place of simply not knowing, of not being caught up on a me in particular. It really is. Are we petering out here, folks? We can finish a few minutes early if this is satisfactory to everybody at this point.
How long does it take to wash your bowls?
It depends. It depends. So there's another book which I read about this koan. It's by Albert Lowe, who's a wonderful, wonderful Canadian. He was, at one point in my life, I was looking for a teacher and I was writing, and he's the only one who responded. He said, Gareth, I'm not your long-term teacher, but you clearly need somebody right now. So I'm happy to do stuff by telephone with you until you find somebody. Just wonderfully kind man and profoundly insightful. He said at one point, he'd just been for a swim and he was in the washing room, the shower, and he got out and he was getting dressed, and he said the guy next to him, when he was finished, he got his towel and he dried the floor. He said, I bet that guy was a monk. So they got caught in a conversation, and of course he was. And when Albert Lowe asked him about wiping the floor, he was kind of just really surprised. What? Doesn't everybody do that? Why would you not? It's just as precious as this body. Why would you not look after it? So, Ken, I believe you're leading that. Oh, Kevin, yes.
I used to call them chores.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you. That's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful, Kevin. And now they are just gifts. Or they are just. Thank you.
Or what's the other koan? That's just the way that I.
Oh yeah. It's the.
Yeah.
I practice my devotion.
Yeah, that's just the way I practice my devotion. Yes.
Yep. Which is a long story, but it's direction, and I won't go through it. It's directionally what we're talking about here. It's the way we experience it. This feels like a good place to wrap up. We're a few minutes early, but it feels like a good place to wrap up. Ken, you're covering next week, right? Is that right?
No, according to my schedule here, I have Thursday, February 22nd. I think Beth has next.
Thursday. I wrote down that I had the 22nd.
Well, I'm glad I asked.
It's a good thing you asked. You're right. You want me to do? Okay, Beth, you want me to do next Thursday?
It doesn't matter if you're ready. I'll admit that I am not. So if you have something prepared.
I can always come up with something. I'll tell you what. Next, I'll take the 15th. You have the 22nd. Then I'll take the 29th.
I think I'm back on the 29th.
Yeah. It's only 2 weeks that he needs.
It's only 2 weeks. Okay, Tell you what. I'll take the 15th next Thursday, and you have the 22nd. Will that work?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, that was a fortuitous question, wasn't it?
Yeah. Or nobody would have arrived next week.
Right. Isn't it? All right. Folks, good night. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Take care.
Wonderful to see everybody.
It is.